dum diddy dum diddy dum.
Hello and welcome to the Analyst Inside Cricket in association with LV Insurance and our look back at the second day's play in the first LV Insurance test match between England and India. And well, a truncated day, but England struck back. Are they back in the match? That's the question.
Well, I think they are back in the match, yeah. But I think, rather be in India's position. They are 58 runs behind. They've got 6 wickets in hand. Rishabh Pant has just come to the crease. Who knows what's going to happen with him? I mean, he's the sort of unpredictable element when it comes to the third day. KL Rahul at the other end, really solid. I mean, admirable innings, really high-class innings from Rahul. And then there's Jadeja to come, and then the bowlers. Although Shardul Thakur is, not the worst number 8 in the world. So there is an opening for England. I mean, what I think is clear to say is that they're in a better position this evening than they were yesterday evening. I think that's the conclusion. They have improved their position. And it just shows you, doesn't it? Cricket is so capricious. At one stage, India 97 for no wicket. Rahul and Rohit Sharma batting well in reply to 183. It looked one result in town, and then suddenly 4 wickets for 15 runs either side of lunch. Rohit Sharma caught on the fine leg boundary. It was felt like a bit of a bonus wicket. There was a run out as well. Anderson bowling beautifully to pick up 2, and the feel of the game completely changed. I think the sad thing from an England point of view, or the disappointing thing from an England point of view, was the weather really closing in, because they were good bowling conditions, and the crowd was up as well. Noisy Thursday crowd. The crowd were up right behind Anderson and et al. And you feel as if a wicket could have fallen at any moment, but then the rain came. And Jimmy Anderson at the moment is in the middle of bowling one of the longest overs in the history of Test cricket. It started at just after 2:25. He's had 3 goes to finish it. He's bowled 4 balls in the over, and it's still not finished. He'll be back sometime tomorrow to complete it.
And that is such a horrible experience as a bowler, when you have to stop your over in the middle of it and then come back an hour later and you stiffen up. That's the worst thing. I never used to understand it, actually, when teams loosened up before a match, say finishing the loosening up half an hour before the start of play. So you then go and have tea and biscuits, and then you stiffen up, and then you've got to start again, half an hour later. At least now they bowl close to the middle right before they actually start. So you can have some looseness. You never used to be allowed to do that. Nowadays you can run up and bowl on an adjoining pitch literally a couple of minutes before the start of play, but they used to ban that. And, so we were all as stiff as a board, and I'm sure Anderson will be every time he has to resume this funny elongated over.
Also, I think the other thing they've banned, Yozza, is probably tea and biscuits as well, between warm-ups and starting the game.
That was the
best bit. Well, that's your era.
Yeah,
tea and cake.
I'd just like to also, before we get to look at today's play, I would like to just issue a small apology, not to you, but to Jasprit Bumrah, who I sort of said to him yesterday that he was a bit lucky to get the Rory Burns wicket. And actually, I've examined the footage a little bit more closely since. And actually, it was a deliberate ploy by him in that first over of the match to angle the seam, sort of tilt it towards, well, it would be slip, I suppose, to the left-hander for the first 4 balls of the over. And then with a brilliant, just subtle change of grip, for the last ball, he just tilted the seam slightly towards fine leg for a left-hander and managed to angle it back in towards the batsman without any real deception, without any perceptible change, and obviously got the late in swing to the left-hander and pinned him LBW. And I said maybe that was a bit lucky, but actually it was totally planned and just achieved by slightly tilting the seam and a little bit of subtle change of release. So I apologise to Jasprit. He's a cleverer bowler than I thought.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I was surprised when he said that yesterday. I mean, I did say, it was good bowling. You were ploughing on regardless.
I suppose it's kind of, because I remember producing an accidental outswinger after a few in-swingers. So I thought it was the same for him, but he's in a different class, isn't he? Anyway, I mean, today, Anderson actually mainly, interestingly, concentrated on the in-swinger, didn't he, to the right-handers. And I think actually that's quite sensible, because what you find as a seam bowler is if you try and bowl the in-swinger, so you're tilting the seam towards sort of fine leg, what you find is quite often it swings in and then seams away like a leg cutter. And that's what he did. So instead of bowling the outswinger, which sort of goes away off the seam even more, the in-swinger forces the batsman to play and then can seam away. And that's how he got both the wicket of Pujara and then next ball Kohli. And what a dramatic little spell of play that was. It was so exciting.
It was. It really was. I mentioned the crowd earlier. The noise in the ground. The Test match came alive. Really. I mean, it felt as if England were totally out of it. India nearly putting together a century partnership for the first wicket. Felt like big enough lead. Might even be innings victory and all that sort of stuff. And then within half an hour, whatever it was, England right back in it. I did ask Jimmy in his post-match interview about his hat-trick ball, and he basically said, yeah, it was rubbish, wasn't it? It was a big in swinger down the leg side to Rahane, and relief for Rahane. But it was dramatic cricket, and Kohli out first ball. So 5th time he's been out first ball in Test cricket, but it's the first time Jimmy Anderson has got him out for 7 years, and 72 overs he's bowled to him in that time over various series. And he was all over him in 2014. He got him 4 times, but he didn't get him out in the last series. He did have a couple of catches dropped, but it was such an important wicket, and the celebration as well. I remember there's an old Trafford Test match where Courtney Walsh took a wicket, I remember, in a game, and he sort of ran off towards square leg to celebrate with all his teammates running after him. It was a bit like that. Anderson ran off towards backward point, and everyone ran after him and mobbed him. And it's just such an important wicket, isn't it, to get rid of Virat Kohli early on. And then, I mean, they're remarkable. Rishabh Pant coming in at number 6, and the lights were on, it was overcast, Anderson was getting the ball to move, the crowd were behind him, but Rishabh Pant, what do you do? I know, 4th ball, I'll come down the pitch and have a huge hack at Jimmy Anderson, and he managed to get it over cover and picked up 3 runs. I mean, you can just imagine the dressing room if he skied one and been caught. He got away with it, and so he is the man, isn't he, that you feel could turn a sort of balanced game at the moment into something decisively in India's favour. Not necessarily just him, but you feel an hour and 15 minutes of Rishabh Pant when play finally resumes, then it feels India will get ahead. Where are we on the who's winning graph? I'm quite interested in this tonight. Yesterday, I thought it was fairly obvious at the close of play who was winning. What have we got? The seam. It looks as though the draw is well ahead, and England moving a bit closer to India. So it's draw, India, England. Yeah, well, I can sort of understand that. I don't know. I've got a feeling there will be an outright.
I think there's enough in the pitch, isn't there? I don't think they're going to need that much play to get 4 innings in. A bit like the World Test Championship final, actually, which of course went to 6 days, but it probably only had about 3.5 days of actual play, or maybe 4.
Well, 2 days were completely washed out. Yeah, 2 days were completely washed out.
Yeah. So I think, and there's even more movement in this pitch than there was there at the Ageas Bowl. So I can definitely see a result happening, provided they get 3 days and a bit of play overall. I mean, obviously the more it rains, the more the dampness will kind of stay in the surface, and the overcast conditions as well will encourage the bowlers. The bowlers get a bit of rest, so they'll be fresh and all that. So it's going to be hard work for the batsmen generally. Definitely can see a decisive result. Yeah, the draw is unexpectedly high in the percentage ratings here, and I think we can sort of almost discount that, actually. I think it'll be very hard to play for a draw on that pitch as well. So interesting to see what happens.
Well, it'll only be a draw if the weather significantly intervenes over the next 3 days of the game. We can add on time tomorrow, the day after, and the day after. My understanding is the weather forecast for the 3rd day is a bit iffy. Some rain in the morning and then showers. So it's one of those where you might get a lot of play, you might not get much. So you can sort of understand the sort of the interest in the draw. But I mean, you're right. There's definitely, it feels as if there's definitely enough in this pitch, and the game is advanced enough already for there to be an outright in the game. And England are back in it. England in an ideal world, they're thinking, well, can we drop India for about the same that we scored? But there's still Jadeja to come as well. Rahul and Pant. Those are the sort of the three main men with a bit of support from the lower order. You never know. An innings or a lead of 50 that might be really important in a test match like that. A bit like, in fact, that New Zealand managed in that World Test Championship final against India. So similar-ish sort of game so far. How do you feel England bowled today? I mean, it was that the first session. I mean, England, just about every over, one ball went past the outside edge of the bat. So it was great application, really, from Rahul and Rohit Sharma.
Yeah, in fact, I thought they played superbly. I thought their judgment of what to play and how to play it. There was a very, very nice piece of analysis, and I complimented him on it, actually, by Dinesh Karthik, who looked at how Rohit Sharma shapes up in one-day cricket compared to Test cricket, and just some subtle differences, slightly more square on, slightly more side on in tests than in one-dayers. So his left shoulder pointing right down the wicket. And also the bat, interestingly, his bat kept much closer to his body in Test cricket, just a little bit more latitude of his bat sort of pointing towards third slip for one-day cricket, I presume to enable him to kind of get his back lift high and swish through the line, and maybe a bit more actual height in the back lift as well in the one-day game. But in Test matches, a little bit more compact. And it beautifully executed innings by both he and KL Rahul. In the end, actually quite an intelligent bit of bowling by Ollie Robinson to get Rohit Sharma out, bounced out, sort of unexpected bouncer, which is always the best kind of bounce, and very well directed, and quite a good catch, actually, because it went flat to fine leg. I thought Stuart Broad was probably the least effective. Anderson looked dangerous, though he couldn't quite get his line right, but he got the movement. Broad was a bit unlucky. There was a couple of balls he got past the edge, but he looked probably the least threatening. And I thought Robinson looked good. I mean, his length, his natural length is slightly shorter than his ideal, because, not many of his balls are hitting the wicket, and he's hit the pads a few times, the ball's going over. But I think his control and his general mindset and attitude is excellent.
Yeah, we had 4 big LBW shouts. He's had 4 big LBW shouts so far. One of those moments where they've been reviewed, or you think, actually one was given out and then it was overturned. And of course, none of them were hitting the stumps. And there was a stat that came up around about 1:45. So 15 minutes before lunch, that only 3% of the balls that England bowled would have hit the stumps. And so Robinson comes into that category because of his height. Really, it's not easy to get LBWs.
No, it doesn't mean that batsmen don't play at them, though, even though the ball might not be hitting the stumps. If it's close to the stump, that still induces or encourages a shot. And there were 33 play and misses, I think, in the morning session as well. So, that shows I think, a combination of last night and today in the first session. So I think England were pretty close to being excellent, and the batting was equal to it until that little collapse after lunch. Any lapsed cricketers in Oxford who fancy donning their whites again should keep an eye out for our latest project we're profiling of LV General Insurance and the ECB's £1 million Funds for Runs initiative. Oxenford Cricket Club will be using their funding to put on city centre sessions for both children and adults. Funding will go towards 4 specific projects. The first is offering city centre All-Stars and Dynamos programmes for both boys and girls for the first time. Along with that, the club will be entering a women's team into the Hardball Super 8s tournament, also for the first time. Thirdly, they'll be improving their women's softball festival to attract new girls into the sport by offering a barbecue and medals for participants. And finally, the club will be putting on taster cricket sessions aimed at beginners and lapsed players in the city at an affordable price to maximise playing opportunities and encourage ongoing participation. If that sounds up your street, please contact the club online. And that's Oxenford Cricket Club in Oxford. Sounds good.
Off the field today, Yoz, some big news out of the England camp. And I mean, not entirely unexpected, but I think that the length of Jofra Archer's absence, I think, surprised quite a lot of people. I think we've realised, felt after reading newspaper stories a couple of days ago that he was struggling again, but out for the T20 World Cup and out for the Ashes as well. I mean, that is a serious absence and a big blow for England, I think. Definitely for both competitions, actually, not least the T20 World Cup. I mean, he's such a significant short form player, and clearly, of course, we saw in the last Ashes series that he can give batters the hurry up, like Steve Smith at Lords. He just takes something away from England's armoury as far as the Ashes are concerned. I mean, you went to see Ben Stokes earlier in the summer, and you didn't get any inkling of the news that was going to come out with Stokes and Archer as well. You felt he was sort of on the way to some sort of a recovery.
Well, I mean, he said to me on the record, actually, he said to me, what do you think? I said to him, what do you think about your prospects? And he said, I'm in no hurry. And I thought that was quite revealing. I thought that meant, the next month or two. But we did say, actually, when he first got this injury, that it's quite worrying because he has that hyperextension, which creates that extra pace. And that's a very sort of vulnerable joint, your elbow, especially when you're doing that hyperextension. And I mean, I actually used to have a hyperextendable elbow, and I got injured. And look at the state of it now. I can't even straighten it. And that was from a similar kind of injury at the same kind of stage in my career. And so I just hope that he does get it right eventually, because otherwise he'll lose that extra bit of pace, and there'll be constant nagging pain in his elbow. So I'm sure it's right to try and get it to really properly recover. I mean, yes, a wonderful opportunity would have been to play in the Ashes. I feel that, he's a bowler who likes hot weather and hard pitches, what fast bowler doesn't. And it would have really excited him to play in the Ashes. But interestingly, spending a bit of time with Kane Williamson yesterday in the time interviewing him for our documentary, and I asked him what he thought of Archer. And was he surprised that Archer got picked for England so quickly? And he said, no, not at all. He said, not remotely. I saw him in franchise cricket before he got picked by England. He was outstanding, brilliant talent. And they had no doubt that when he got picked for the Super Over, that he would deliver it really well. So his reputation, especially in the short form, is immense around the world, and he'll be a massive loss for England in that World T20.
Yeah, I mean, we had the interview with Jofra Archer in a couple of podcasts ago, and I remember that very clearly, where he said, "I'm in no hurry." And to me, that seemed to say, well, is he going to play any international cricket this summer? But to be out for the rest of the year, I think did surprise me today. So when he was saying, I'm in no hurry, I mean, perhaps he sensed that it was going to be a much longer term situation. But I mean, I think it's quite a significant blow for him just to have him there, really. I mean, a fit Jofra Archer in Australia, I think, would give inevitably it would give England something. It really would, and not to have him. And there's no Ollie Stone as well. I mean, there were three bowlers that Chris Silver talked about, a while back, going to Australia: Mark Wood, Jofra Archer, and Ollie Stone, three pace bowlers, and they're down to one of them now, and that's Mark Wood. So
and his fitness record isn't great, so it just shows how demanding fast bowling is. And there was a slow-mo of Stuart Broad letting go of the ball today on TV. And, all the commentators, I think it was Ian Ward and Dinesh Karthik or someone, were on saying, look at the shock waves going through your body every time you bowl. Who'd want to be a bowler? And that's very true. One man, though, who does like to seem to be a bowler is Jimmy. And, he's now in his, 40th year, still playing Test cricket, still bowling magnificently. And so today, we definitely give him the LV Insurance In With Heart award, because, well, I mean, not just for his performance today, but for performances since about 2003. He's been doing it for 18 years. It's incredible.
And the other thing, of course, today is he's now joint third on the list of Test wicket takers of all time. There is only Matai Muratharan and Shane Warne ahead of him. He's gone level with Anil Kumble. So for a fast bowler to do that as well. I mean, you've got three spinners were ahead of him on the list, but for a pace bowler to keep going, as you mentioned, he was 39 a few days ago. I mean, he says he's as fit as ever. So all the tests say I'm fit as I've ever been. And today he sort of dragged England back into the match. His economy rate as well. I mean, they're remarkable figures: 13.4 over 7 maidens. 2 for 15. He barely gave a run away today, and it increased the pressure on India. Even though they were building something. But as I said, you do feel on this pitch that there are sort of 2 or 3 quick wickets around the corner, and that's what England, of course, will be hoping when and if the third day's play gets underway here at Trent Bridge.
Doesn't it show that when he was on the hat trick and he bowled the hat trick ball, and the hat trick ball, sort of sailed down the leg side, but it was about 2 miles an hour quicker, and it just shows how much sport is in the mind, because when you take a wicket, and especially when you take 2 wickets, and the second wicket is Virat Kohli, that just infuses you with this amazing amount of energy. Even though you're in your 40th year and you're bowled, 8 overs in the morning, whatever, you can bowl that next ball much quicker. Unfortunately, it wasn't directed well, but it just shows the psychology of the game. It does make you achieve things you probably think are almost superhuman.
Yeah, just perhaps we have the final thought from an Indian perspective. They might feel they've just let a really good position slip. You mentioned the Rohit Sharma dismissal. I had a really good view of it actually. It live. It went really quickly, and Sam Curran taking the catch on the boundary. He actually sort of puffed his cheeks out as if to say, "Wow, that got to me quickly." But anyway, they got that wicket. It felt like a bit of a bonus wicket, but Robinson banged it in short and see what the slot machine came up with, and it came up with a wicket. And then the run out, of course. And India's running today wasn't particularly good. England had 3 shots at a run out, and finally they got one as well with Rahane dismissed, going back to the non-striker's end. Rahul sort of he is a strange one really. Rahane really committed to a run, whereas Rahul, he sort of shaped as if he was going to run and then stepped back, but Rahane came a long way down. There were times today where India's running wasn't good, so that was a bonus wicket as well, which helped get England back in the match. So I think India will feel they perhaps just opened the door a bit, but excellent bowling from Anderson to pick up those 2 wickets. Of course, he could have had a third as well. It's funny, isn't it? It doesn't just rain; it pours sometimes. Dom Sibley at second slip, dropping Rahul. It wasn't the easiest of chances away to his left-hand side, but it was catchable. He got 2 hands to it and he spilled it, and that would have been a third wicket for Jimmy Anderson. And England had such a sort of surge of adrenaline at that moment, and they could have really decisively got back in the game. At the moment, it's sort of they've got an opportunity. They've given themselves an opportunity. The cricket we've had has been actually fascinating. It often is when the ball is dominating the bat, and it's hard work for the batters. Anyway, so all to play for with 3 days to go, and
all to play for in the morning. I think don't miss it if you can afford to be near a TV or radio at 11 o'clock tomorrow. Make sure you tune into this, because Pant against Broad and Anderson probably, or Pant against Broad and Ollie Robinson, or Anderson and Robinson, should be fascinating viewing. And actually, KL Rahul's a pretty good player to watch as well, or listen to be described about. So that sounds like a really interesting session in the morning. And of course, we'll be back tomorrow night to review third day's play of this first LV Insurance Test match. See you then.
Dum diddy dum diddy dum.